Hi, everybody. It's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Joanne Soike with For Better For Worse.
And Lisa Bataska with Canine Defined.
Hello. Today we're going to be talking about dogs and the holidays. And I mean, we're going to kind of cover all the holidays, like Halloween, which is tomorrow, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, just in general, kind of talking about the holidays and kind of how to handle them, because that's usually such a stressful time in general. And just hoping that, hi, Karen, Deb, Alicia, um, hoping that we can kind of give you some tips to help it make, help the holidays kind of go smoothly. And this year I am actually having people at my house. So, I get to do some of this stuff too and practice it. So, I just wanted to cover for Halloween. That can be a very interesting, depending on where you live and the children and the doorbell and all that stuff. So, I'm going to tell you how I handle it. My doorbell is disconnected because we don't have a lot of children in our neighborhood, number one, and number two, we're usually never home on Halloween. So and this year won't we are going to be home, but we're not going to be home early enough. So that's what we do. Or when we did used to have decorate and have kids come when the kids were smaller in the neighborhood, we were just out there watching, had the screen door open, and the dogs were in another part of the house so that they're not listening to that doorbell and barking and going and carrying on, because that is very stressful for all involved. So the barking and the doorbell and the knocking. So we just managed it where we sat out there for a little while and gave out candy. And then when we were done, we just turned off the lights and that was it. Because it would just be too stressful. At that time, we had a lot of little dogs. It was just too challenging. And the dogs that really did enjoy children, they sat out front with us. But now the children in our neighborhood, we've been here 23 years. They're all grown adults and gone. So we don't have a lot of kids. So I don't know. What do you guys do?
Shut all the lights off. Pretend I'm not home. No, it sucks. Every year I have a fiscal year end that I work on. It just happens to fall over Halloween. But yeah, I don't have my porch light on because I'm working, number one, and we get the neighborhood where people like bust children. And it got to the point where like nobody even wears costume anymore. I'm like, I'm not giving you candy.
I want a costume.
Yeah. You show up in a hoodie and jeans, trick or treat. No, go away. And I want my house to get egged, so I just don't turn the lights.
Oh my God. And that's an option. However, if you enjoy doing with 5 dogs, it's too much. Yep, I get it. And like I said, usually I would give them something to chew when we used to sit out there, and it was and then we would just take the dogs that would enjoy it, and then we would just sit out there and enjoy the kids walking back and forth and all that. But now the kids in our neighborhood are, they're adults. The kids we had were nearby, were next door. Now they're grown. They're like 25. So so they're grown adults. And then we haven't had more children in our neighborhood. So it's quiet. How about you, Lisa?
Well, I love where I live because I live way out in the middle of like cornfields around me. So we don't get people. So yay, I like it. Yeah. But when I was in Chicago, whether your lights were on or not, they're ringing the bell.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, and so I didn't, I wasn't a big fan of Halloween. Mm-hmm. So I don't really, we don't get anybody coming down our way because there's a big a long drive that goes around, and we sit off the road behind another house. And so it works. I'm happy with it.
But one of the things you can do if you live in a neighborhood and you have children and you want to enjoy that time, and the dog doesn't, right? Because you have to decide if your dog enjoys having kids, people coming in and out of your, because I cannot tell. I have a shepherd and he just happens to love people, but you have that many people coming up to your house with a guardian breed. It's probably a very bad idea to have them.
That's what I should do. I'm going to put a bowl of candy next to the door and I'm going to tie Bam on the porch. If you're brave enough to get candy.
Nice.
Just kidding. Don't do that. That's bad.
Not nice.
But yeah, you want to be real thoughtful about your breed, right? Because if it's a guardian breed, people coming up to your house probably is not going to be fun for you, for the dog. Again, given it really depends on your dog and how much they enjoy it. Some people love, the dogs. I had one. My beagle used to love the dogs coming, children coming to the house and that, and she would get petted, and she just enjoyed it. So we used to sit out there with her. The min pins were a little bit too loud, so would be very, very challenging for her. But to be honest, majority of the time we weren't home. But if you are going to be home, or if you're going, the other things a lot of people do is take the children with the dog to go trick-or-treating. And again, you want to make sure that the dog is comfortable being in that environment, right? Because especially if you live in a busy street with lots of kids and you're taking your dog too, you want to make sure that he's going to be comfortable with all that activity and kids moving about and all that, because you want to have the dog be part of the family and enjoy that piece, but you want to make sure it really that it really is going to enjoy that situation, because if it doesn't, that it really takes the fun out of it for the children and for the dog. So just be mindful of that. Like, really be honest with yourself. Like, does the dog enjoy that or not? And then you can take them with you to do all that, to see all that, to enjoy the day on being out with the kids and all that stuff. Some dogs really love it and some dogs don't. So really be mindful about what your dogs like and don't like.
Yeah. So one of the other things I'll mention with Halloween, if anyone's worked in an ER, it's the busiest day of the year, pretty much. It gets crazy on Halloween. And emergency vets are similar. So when you have things like chocolate or candy, right? Just make sure that you're locking that stuff up. Don't leave things out, even if it's just for a minute. A small piece of chocolate or something like that ideally is not going to hurt your dog, but right, don't risk it.
Yeah. And then, the truth is, it's relative to your dog's size, right? If you have a very large Doberman that ate a couple of candy bars, it's probably not a big deal. But if you have a min pin that eats a couple of candy bars, you're in trouble, right? That's going to be that can be pretty detrimental. And again, it's the milk chocolate that causes, that'll, or the baker's chocolate that makes them really sick, but it's still, it'll give you a diarrhea and all these other things. So it's something to consider. Make sure you put the candy where the dogs can't get it, and just be, and like Joanne says, it's the busiest time for people and for dogs. So just be really mindful of that. And also, if your dog is environmentally worried, people like to decorate and have all the stuff, and that might be a little too much for some of the dogs as well. So something to consider as well, right? So that's the Halloween. Halloween, the biggest thing I think, and we probably should have checked. Halloween, I think the biggest thing is dogs eating candy or a lot of chocolate, or getting into some of the treats and stuff that cause some of that issue. So yeah, I think that's the biggest one. For people, I don't know why do people end up because they drink too much? I don't know.
I think it's just a large majority of people are out and about in the world, right?
Making great choices.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably, but it's on a week. It is on a weeknight, so usually that kind of keeps things a little calmer. And depending on the weather, but I think tomorrow we're supposed to have some pretty nice weather, so something to think about. Also, don't leave the dogs out in the yard when people are passing by and things like that. They can get over-aroused and overstimulated with kids and people passing by, and while they may never normally misbehave or jump up or jump on anybody or nip someone, that activity level might be a little bit too much for some dogs. So something to also consider. You need to give them something to do, give them a bone, something to chew that they can enjoy until that activity kind of calms down some, right? So something to think about, because it's like, that's a lot, especially if they're not used to it, because it's going to be, if it's busy and stuff with the kids. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep. So anyway, that's one thought. The other holiday to consider is Thanksgiving and Christmas, when we usually either travel or when we have people over at our home, at our house. That those are the two things, and food and all of that. So if you have a dog that worries about people and all that, you definitely want to give your dog a quiet place to be and to relax when people are over, right? It's really, really important because people just want, again, we all want our dogs to be part of the family and to be part of the activities, but sometimes it's, they can do it in small doses. And I know I find myself when I have people over and I have dogs to tend to and people to tend to, it's just becomes a little overwhelming. I'm going to be honest. I can't manage that much activity because you have to keep an eye on the dogs. You have to keep an eye on the guests. And back in the day when a lot of our family members had young children, that was really horrible. And so, because you never know what's happening with the dog. So usually I used to, secure them where they're going to be comfortable and happy. And then I would be able to have more peace of mind dealing with, other holidays. Strangers don't ring the bell constantly, right? And especially if you have again, a guardian breed, that's a tough one. But anyway, so it's something to think about when you are, when people are coming over for holidays. Make sure your dog is going to be comfortable or they have a place to be where they can be quiet. Because also for yourself, especially if there's a lot of children, you want to make sure doors are closed, gates are closed, all of those things, because all those bad things happen when you're trying to do too much. And again, you want that dog to be part of your family, but you want to kind of do it in a more managed way so that everybody has a good time, including the dog, right?
When people come over, like I always have my dogs put up anyway in their crates because they like their crates. And then I'll let them out one at a time to greet and so forth, and then see how everybody does. But if I have a youngin or if there's a lot of foot traffic right now, I have to be concerned about my little 2-pounder, right? So
Yeah.
I want him to get crushed. But usually, and then we go outside and depending on the weather and stuff, they might play ball with the dogs and stuff. And that's kind of a nice, it's good interaction with them where you exercise them at the same time. And then they come in and they're a little more chill too. So, things to think about with that is exercise prior to, seeing if you can do that. And then I would one thing you can do is counter condition your doorbell to go to your place or a crate or what have you. So that you're away from the front of the door. I think lots of times too, I don't know about you, but I do get called into reactive dogs at front doors and stuff like that. And that becomes a big issue. So a lot of it is going to be management because they've had a history of doing it. So then setting up barriers, having some alternative ways to prevent the dog from closing space at the door, because the other day I was there, it was a little Morky, I think it was, and that dog would have nipped me, but I'm like, nope, keep it on leash and bring it out and so forth. But remember, if you're looking at trying to change the behavior, you got to start working on that right off. That shouldn't be something you go, oh, we're having Halloween or Christmas or whatever, therefore I got to do that, because that's not enough time, right? So
right. And then depending on, right, and if you're, and you definitely, and then it goes back to another thing. I was talking to somebody recently about, if you're going to be, if you're going to be traveling or you might be traveling during the holidays, you should, and you're going to board your dogs, you probably want to start doing that now.
Yep.
I can tell you, we get calls around the holidays a lot looking for boarding. We don't board, but looking for people to board the dog. It's like, well, you didn't know you were going out of town, a few months ago. So it's something to consider if you're going to have to leave your dogs. If you're going to have to leave your dogs at, if you're going to have to board your dogs over the holidays, make sure you reserve your spots early and with enough time so that way your dog has a spot and a place to be if he can't go with you, right? Because it's like, I'm just surprised. We were shocked how many people call. And it could be that last minute, they get an invitation or whatever. But that it's just really hard because it's that's the busiest time for all the boarding facilities and all that stuff. So,
yep, Cleveland. Yeah, I think it's pretty booked. Like even now, I mean,
oh yeah,
I have clients that I will help out and stuff like that, depending on what happens. But And I'm super selective because the dogs have to be okay in a crate, because sometimes dogs don't get along, right? And I have other dogs in my house. So if I have a specific type of dog, that's the other thing. I'm like, you need to, I don't know. I'm a proponent of crate training. So that's important to me. They have to feel comfortable with it. So, whether you're boarding in any kind of confinement too, right? So I'm in a situation where I need dogs that are okay in crates, and I do work with that, but, so that I can manage dogs in and out. And in boarding facilities, I don't think there's a lot of boarding facilities anymore that do crating. They usually have suites and stuff like that. But, you also have to think about when you do those things, it's more noisy. They're out of their element. It's noisier. It's a little more stressful for them. So pre-planning is important, whether it be my dog may need a little extra something to help them get through that. And then, that type of stuff. And then rehearse leaving them on occasion with somebody else and away from you, so that you have a better idea of it, what it looks like. And rehearse, if you're going to be boarding at a facility, maybe do it overnight and see how they do, so you get a good feel for
it. And also make sure your dogs respect gates. Our little new addition to the family doesn't so much. So she can physically jump over a gate without missing a beat. So we're working on, she's great in a crate, so that's great. But gates are kind of suggestions for her. So we have to get her to understand that, nope, they're really actual rules.
So how are you training that? I'm curious.
I haven't started because she's been so low confidence. I've kind of been, kind of letting her just get real comfortable with everything. So she's a little too comfortable now. So I am just reinforcing her for staying off the gate for right now. And so that seems to be helping. Sometimes she'll sit longingly, but she stays there, right? The other thing I'm teaching her is she's trying to jump up on my counters now, and I have new counters, so that's a big no. So we're working on, if you put your feet on the floor, you get paid. That's how I taught Jive not to jump up on stuff. So yeah, her food rations are, rationed because there's a lot of that training, but I haven't, to be honest, we haven't done a lot of training, given her
lack of confidence,
her mental state and all that. But now she's like, yeah, whatever. She's over it pretty quick now. So we can start doing a little more training on stuff like that, because now she's much more she understands more about what's okay and what's not. And if she jumps over the gate, I put her back in the gate. I put her back over there and have her stay, and then I reinforce her for staying there. And then usually so it's happening a lot less, but she still wants to really bad. So your Kim, your dogs travel. Yeah. See, that's what I mean. I think dogs need to be used to traveling. And most of the people who compete or are in dog sports, the dogs are used to that. But for a family dog that's not used to spending long periods in the car and all that. And again, I prefer crates in the car, but some people use seat belts, and those work really, really well too. So if your dog's comfortable for, because I think you're able to lie down and all that stuff if you wear the seatbelt, but you want them to be as comfortable as possible. And you don't want to wait until you're actually leaving on that road trip to be able to take your dog, to put them in the car and travel with them, right? For to be honest, because we are all used to traveling with our dogs, so it's like not something you think about. But other people that don't typically do that, it is something to consider. You have to get the dog ready and all that stuff. So.
And I do like limited board and train, or if I foster or anything, those dogs are also learning those life skills, because most people want to take their dogs with them, and I prefer crating them just because it's a safety issue and stuff like that. But I think for me, if I'm taking a dog and whatever, they're crated and they go to different places. And I've had dogs who have been like car sick and stuff like that. So you do shorter trips to maybe just me to the gas station and stuff like that. And that seems to be helpful. And then don't feed them and, stuff like that. If you get car sickness, and then Dramamine and stuff like that. So
Yeah. And Tina, yeah, I used to let my shepherds and my dogs have stayed with other overnight at other places for board for when they were puppies because like my I'm getting a new puppy next week and we already have scheduled to stay at Aunt Lisa's for a couple of days. So he gets used to being away from me. And I am bringing him I'm flying him back. So what we've done, I sent the little bag that he's going to fit in, right, Joanne?
Stuff them in.
We're gonna crawl in there.
Don't feed them for days.
I'm going to. I sent the little bag he's coming home in to the breeder a couple of weeks ago, so that she can get him used to going in and out of there and be comfortable in there. So the first time he's in there isn't when we're flying home, right? So
well, and you know, you say that too. Like my breeder, the breeder for my Papillon, she was rehearsing prior to actually, you know, putting him in the cat crate and having him do that. And then she actually flew him in this not cargo, oh my God, in the in cabin with her, and he did great, but she did all the pre-work. And I think that's the biggest point is you got to do pre-work. Things don't magically happen as much as we would love them to.
Right. And the other thing she's doing is playing airplane sounds. Right. So they get used to hearing that. And that, you know, it's not the first time he's going to hear it. So she's doing a lot of prep stuff because she knows that puppy's going to fly home, even though he's going under, you know, with me in the cabin. It's still, she's making it's going to be as pleasant of an experience as we possibly can make it for him. So yeah, and then just be more comfortable. And usually when they're puppies, it's less of a thing. Rizzo, my little 12-year-old, she flew back from Georgia, and we weren't able to do all the prep work because she was
right.
But she was totally fine and had no issue at all ever. She, you know.
And I think too, like so Cadence, my Dutch Shepherd, she came flying in, and she flew in and stuff like that, and I was like, you know, that was my biggest thing. I was like, how did she handle the flight? Is she stable enough to come out of it? What does she look like? Because I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then when she's like, I was like, even before I looked at her, I was like, what is she friendly? What does she act like? And stuff like that. And like, oh, she's so nice. And okay, I'm like, okay, then I'll see her. So then they came out and she was like, hello. So, you know, and there's some dogs that do well with it and some dogs that don't. And also, you know, the flight length is important as well.
Right. Yeah. Because for me, the flight length for the pup is like an hour and a half. It's not a very long flight.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
So it's too horrible. And, you know, because you also don't want your puppy crying the whole hour and a half you're flying back, because you'll be very unpopular with the rest of the passengers, because it's no different than a screaming child for all that. So doing all that prep work is really, really important to make it comfortable for the dog if they're going to travel with you. It's really, really important.
So Joanne, you have Roscoe. So how did when you first start working him, because he's a foster, was he accustomed to crate, you know, riding in the car? Yeah. How did you get him?
No, well, I'll say that's just so funny, right? The crate is terrifying for him. We're still working on it.
Yeah.
But an X-Pen is totally fine. And a gate is totally fine. Right. And thank God, as a young dog, because I got him at 13 months old. I mean, yeah. So he was just over a year. He didn't mess with anything. So I could leave him gated in a room and he wouldn't chew anything up. I don't know. That was like the saving grace, right? Because I don't know what I would do. But we still try and work the crate.
But what about traveling? Like traveling in the car and stuff? Because I know you take them with you.
I do. This was the super interesting part. I tried it both ways. So I had like a dog bed behind my driver's seat because everybody else is in a crate, and he would hop right in. He's very nervous when the car moves. He pants a lot, but he jumps. Like, I don't even have to ask him to get in. If the door's open, he jumps in. He's like, okay, where are we going? Super excited. Only when the car moves does he start panting. And I was like, all right, let's try a crate in the car because it's safer. And again, he'll jump in that crate in the car. Not a problem. Same, no problem at all. Same exact story, still pants. So I don't know. I have tried Dramamine. I have tried everything natural that I can think of to try for the movement stuff, and it's not working. So I think the next thing I'm going to try is like a quarter of a trazodone. But I'm not going to use that to drive to my building, which is 5 minutes from my house, right? So it's like the next trip I have is this weekend, so I will probably give him that. It's a 2-hour drive, and I'll give him that ahead of time just to kind of see if that helps. It's just I've never really had a dog that I haven't been able to like help out, right? I'm like, dude, tell me what I need to do for you. I will do it. I don't understand what I don't understand what the problem is. So it's hard to work on the fix, right? So I'm struggling a bit.
Well, but sometimes it just truly it just takes time, really.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just time. That's what it is.
Well, it sounds like he's improved, so that's great.
Yeah, he's
everything else, but the car has not, and the crate a little bit. Yeah, I mean we've done some work, but the car has not improved. He's fine. He's happy. Like he doesn't get diarrhea. He doesn't drool. It's just a panting thing. But I don't know. Still trying to find something.
Yeah. Well, no, because he's been with you how long? Not a year.
Yeah.
6 months.
6 months. Well, that's not in the grand scheme of things. That's not a very long time.
It's not.
so especially dogs with with issues like with our little beagle girl. She's improved a lot in 2 months, but there's still you got to remember there's still a lot more that she's got to get used to, car rides and all that. So we're doing it in layers. I wanted her to be happy at home, comfortable at home, and she totally is. So that's great. So then now we can go on to the next. And I've taken her to the facility a couple of times, and she's been pretty happy there. So now, it's a matter of just keep layering things until she's, as comfortable as she can. But getting her out and about, we haven't done much of that because she actually.
Well, the priority is feeling safe somewhere first, right? Always with dogs when you get.
Yeah. So she's now. I feel like she's pretty happy and safe at home. So. Now we can expand.
Now the real training starts.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have to start, taking her in the car, going around the corner, and bringing her home, stuff like that. Because she does drool and throw up. It gets pretty rough.
Yeah.
So anyway, puking even on short trips. Took meds wasn't until the last couple. Yeah, right. And that's probably gonna take time. So there's nothing, especially in her case, she's never been in a car, whatever, where. That's why it's so important, when you get a puppy and they had some enrichment, like my puppy that I'm getting, he's already been in a car ride and he's gone in the car and he already knows what that is. So it's so much easier when they're used to that at an early age. It makes life easier. And it's hard to know why some dogs are car sick or not, and that's the other thing. If you guys are going on a vacation with the family and you're taking the dog and driving is hard, putting them in a crate is probably helpful, or a seat belt, because it'll give them some safety if they're not real comfortable. You can give them stuff to chew and stuff that'll make them, maybe not, relax a little bit if they're not comfortable with, going to your family's house. The other thing, and this is where crate training is really important. I cannot tell you how many people have take dogs to visit family and they get lost and stuff happens, right? That they, they're not in a familiar place and all that stuff, and they end up getting lost. So having a crate and giving them that downtime and that time to adjust and get used to being in their home is really, really important. And the new place is really important, whether it's a hotel or your parents' house or whatever it is. It's really important that they have a safe place of their own with their own bedding and their own stuff to be able to adjust, to acclimate to wherever they're going to be, so that they're not, nothing bad can happen, and they're not, out of their element, right? Especially if they never really have gone anywhere or they haven't gone there before, right? You want to be mindful of that. And now, there's a lot of stuff you can put on them, like GPS and all that. So in case something happens, you can locate your dog and you can get them back or figure out where they went and stuff like that, depending on where you're going. So something to consider. All right. So the other stuff is when people, when you're traveling or when you're, and always check with your airline, because I had to do a lot of research on which airline was going to be the best for flying, for me to fly. I usually always fly United, but I wanted to make sure that was going to be a good choice for bringing the dog in the cabin.
Did they tell you it was American? American is the best for bringing your dog. Are you going to fly it?
Don't even say that to me. I will
Sorry.
I will never fly them again. Anyway, so
It's a little bone of contention lately. I almost didn't make it home last weekend. We're not American fans, so
yeah.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is trees, Christmas trees. People have come up with some really ingenious ideas for the Christmas tree, you know. And I specifically, I have cats, so it gets a little more. I have a tree that's pre-lit, so I don't have to. So I don't have to deal with that. And the truth is, I don't even bother putting ornaments anymore because it's not even worth it. So it's a beautifully pre-lit tree that looks very lovely and very simple. And that's what I can have in my house. Some people, I've seen people put X pens around their tree for the dogs. I've seen, which is probably, I know it doesn't look fancy, but you don't want your dog to get into the presents or on the bottom, or drinking the water on the bottom. If you have a live tree, to drink that water, because that can make them sick. So there's a lot of not so great things that could happen. So it's something to think about when you're thinking of putting up your tree.
I knew people that had they built a chimney, not a real one, but they like wrapped it with like brick wrapping paper, and then it was a sturdy bottom, and then they got a smaller tree to put on top.
Yeah.
So that the dogs couldn't get to the bottom of the tree, right? So it was like built it up that way. It's pretty cool. But I remember.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
It was pretty cool, right? Because then you could still have your tree and everything on it, but it was just elevated so they couldn't get to it. So when I brought my first dog over to my parents' house, my mother, had these German glass ball ornaments. They were glass blown. And my puppy was like, ball, and went over and literally grabbed the ball and glass shattered. Thankfully, she did not, break, get anything in her mouth. But I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll buy you another one. You can't. It's from Germany. So, anyway, she was a little mad about that. But here's the thing, right? Because a lot of ornaments and things like that have sharp edges, glass, some of the old world, they're like foily aluminum, that old school stuff that's Santa Claus, anything sharp like that, right? If you are worried that your dog has swallowed something sharp, best thing to do is feed them some bread and go to the vet. Okay. The bread will actually help to bind to that sharp thing. So if they need them to throw up, or if it does pass, it sort of helps to not let those sharp edges hit the edge of their stomach or intestines. So still seek medical attention, though. Don't just eat some bread and call it done, right? I would definitely, want to go do that. And that's sort of the same thing with bones, right? Cooked turkeys, ham bones, any cooked bones are not okay for your dog. I know most of you guys know that, but any kind of poultry bone shards up, and it can perforate an intestine or a stomach wall. So not good. The other thing around the holidays, right? We all love our pets, and they love all of the hors d'oeuvres and meals and dinners and things. It's one of the highest times of pancreatitis hits dogs.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of the times the things that people will feed their dogs are the skin from chicken, turkey, right? Ham has a ton of sodium in it. Ham's actually really not good for dogs. But if they get a little of this and a little of that, you don't know who's passing stuff under the table. That's why it's nice to have your dog part of the celebration. But if you can't control your family, it's better to put your dog up so you can see, because pancreatitis is terribly painful.
Yep.
It can cause other issues. So it's a lot of fat in most of what we make for the holidays. So be careful on what your dog's getting.
And definitely, if you want your dog to have part of the holiday festivities, you can just make something separate. You can cook a turkey, turkey breast or something like that, if you definitely want them to be partaking in the celebration, if that's something that you all do. I know some people who do make a little bit, a little bit of chicken breast and a little bit of, little potatoes or whatever for the dogs, but that's with no seasonings, that they can enjoy as like with the family. So that's something, something if you would like to go through that extra little to make them part of the family, so that they get to enjoy, but without, like Joanne says, getting um, all this other, that can cause stomach upset, and and that's I work really hard not to have stomach issues, because it is not fun at all. Having to get up and take them here and all that stuff. It's just not something I'm interested in doing. So I'm very mindful about stomach issues and anything that might cause a stomach problem. So
So the other thing that like they have like prepared meals. There's a company, it's a small company, and I know the lady that runs it. It's called ARF, Always Real Food, and she went through the whole processing and getting it approved, blah blah, blah, all this stuff, and checking to make sure all this, but it's actual food that people can eat that they serve for dogs. Remember, kind of like Tiki Cat. Remember when Tiki Dog and Tiki Cat came out? Kind of like that. But it's pretty good stuff. It's expensive. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, costly considering. But sometimes, like around here, people will pitch in. Some of the rescues will pitch in, or people who are supporting rescues will pitch in and say, "Hey, want to buy a turkey dinner for the holiday for this dog or for this rescue," and contribute that. And those are things too, right? So. But you can always look around and find out some really appropriate, the really appropriate foods that are safe for dogs, right? So, and like think about your big box stores. Like sometimes Fresh Pet comes up. That's really not a good necessarily. It's great for treat training potentially, but it's not probably the most healthiest either. But and then again, like Nancy said, people cook for it. As far as Christmas goes, for me, I put up a tree, and then I have it's off limits room to dogs. So,
yep, that's a great option.
We go in there to take pictures, and then we leave. It's not available for their pleasure, so because I don't trust them. So
yeah, well, yeah, and especially when you have a young dog, like I'll have two young dogs this year that don't understand. So it's like. And they don't get, and then my cats are relentless. They're just naughty. So we just don't, the pre-lit, they can enjoy that, but and then we usually tie it up pretty good so that they can't knock it over. Especially the young, especially Elsa. Fido's almost 15. He's almost 15, so he's not into the shenanigans, but Elsa still is. So
how old is she?
She's only 7. So,
oh.
so she's too much. Okay. So those are some things that, want something to consider and think about that. And also make sure that, again, don't let the tree water, and like Joanne said about the ornaments, candles, please be careful of that. And also plants, right? Poinsettias, holly, mistletoe, they can be very toxic to the dogs. So make sure your dog can't get to them, or they don't have, they don't have access to it. I mean, candles. If you have a husband like mine that enjoys lighting candles, we don't have them anymore in my house because my husband likes to let them stay lit, and my cats. Fortunately, I had one year my husband had a candle lit, and my cat's coming at me. He's sitting in front of me, and I'm like, "What is going on with him?" He had burned off his whiskers from the candle. So I'm like, you know what? That's it. No more candles for me. So we don't. We use ones that are battery operated. If you want to have candles and have that ambiance, or just make sure that the animals are put away if you're going to do that for your dinner and stuff like that. Because that
so Maria's home has very much a lot of ambiance. It sounds like.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and tinsel or tinsel garland is one of those, can cause obstructions because they can get stuck in the intestines. So, again, so many hazards.
Right, that we enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
but that and then be careful with alcohol. That's the other thing. If you have, I knew of a friend, her little, very, I don't know, 5-6 pound dog drank a little bit of her wine, not much, but that'll cause renal failure, and it almost killed that little dog. So it's something to really think about. So that's why it's important that you have a plan for the holidays, no matter what you're doing, so that way everybody can get into the new year in a safe, happy way instead of with going to vets and all that. Because now, to be honest, going to the ER now is pretty challenging. A lot of places aren't even taken anymore. They're so full all the time. So it's something to really consider. Just stay out of there so that you don't have to be there and do any of that.
Yep. And if you don't have any on hand and your dog has noise issues, don't forget there are fireworks on New Year's Eve. So go get your Tresdones now, or kind of stock up for some of that if that's something you use for 4th of July. Don't wait till the holidays get close and everybody gets super busy.
Yeah. And the other thing is, when people are coming over to your home, exercise your dog the day, and during the day, go for a long walk or a play session, or those of you who do nose work, do a little bit of nose work so that the dogs are a little tired when people come over. And also be very clear with your guests about what the rules are when it comes to the animals, right? If they're coming over, it's not that you want to be kind of a sour them on it, but you really want them to understand that this is important, just so that everybody has a good time and you don't have to worry about it. And like I said, if you do, because we have them too, we have family members that don't kind of follow the rules, then make sure that the dogs are put away and that they have a safe place to be when people are there, so that way they don't have to deal with that. So
I remember one year, it's just a little family story. One year I had a family over, and this was in Chicago. And in Chicago, I was ridiculous enough to have quite a few dogs. So I had everybody in crates in the room, and my people biter was also in the room, Simon. And my oldest brother, Gerald, thought it would be a great idea. Where are the dogs? And I'm like, oh, they're in the room. So I had a gate in the door, and it was closed. And what does he do? He runs over there, opens the door, and then closes the door. And I'm like, you could have easily gotten bitten. That's really a stupid thing. Really? Yeah. So I really appreciate now that I have more space to put my dogs away. Not that he'll do that now, because he kind of realizes, I do this for a living, so I might know something.
Plus you have bigger dogs now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. With bigger mouths and bigger teeth.
Right.
So anyway, those are things to consider when you are over the holidays, because it's some things that people don't even think about, and they but usually travel is kind of the biggest thing. Traveling and making sure they're comfortable with that, or making arrangements if you need to leave them behind and things like that, because it does it's very stressful anyway. The holidays, and many, even if you want your family around and all that, but it's usually very stressful for most of us. So you just want to make sure that you don't add to your stress and to your situation by not having a good plan for the dogs and for what they're going to do and what they're going to how they're going to handle the new holiday. Because I think we don't even think about it. We get so wrapped up in trying to deal with whatever we're going to do with it. Oh, what are we going to cook? Family's coming over. So-and-so is going to stay. All those things. We get really into that. And then we forget about, the dogs have to have we have to figure out what to do with them and how they're going to handle it and what's going to be good for them. Because then it just adds to, for me, I know it adds to my level of stress for sure.
Absolutely.
If I have to be thinking about what my dog's doing, or or what's, who's handling my dog, or what it just makes it very stressful for me. So usually in the beginning, and we talked about this before about greeting people, right? You don't let a pack of dogs or a dog meet people at the door. Have a gate, have people come in, have them sit down and calm down, and then have them come out and meet those folks, whether it's one at a time, or if you want to do a couple at a time, it's fine. But greeting at the door, you can have a dog fight, and then also the food situation. If you have multiple dogs where there's a lot of food and all that, you can have a situation that you didn't need to have. with people and food and the two dogs and all that. Because remember, they would maybe typically never have an issue with food, but it's going to be a busier environment. Their arousal is going to be up a little more, so you might have a situation that um, that would change the dynamics and cause a problem that they wouldn't have had otherwise, right? So don't just assume because they never had that issue that it couldn't possibly happen. It couldn't possibly happen during Christmas time at that stuff. So it's something to consider.
And I think some of us have the dogs that are like, I remember I would stress about I didn't want anybody over because I had Simon who would bite people, or Charlie who would be, just a nut job. And it was so stressful. It was like, I hated it. I hated when people came over. And then I felt I was very like torn because I wanted to visit, but at the same time I was managing dogs and the carrying on and so forth and making sure. And then also like I'd have to take Simon out. So when people would come over, I would put him up in my room with where we're living. So when everybody was out of the house, I'd sneak him out on a leash to go potty and then put him back up again. And I think those are things people you consider too when you have those challenging dogs. It is stressful for you. So, keep them safe. Keep them safe. If you can crate them or socially isolate them so that they're separate from everybody, and then you don't have to worry as much about it. And I felt better about it, but it was still stressful no matter what, because you're like, and you're always looking at the time. Oh gosh, I think I have to take them out to potty. And you know what I mean? So I guess the lesson I learned from that was then I would select for dogs that are a little more tolerant of people and dogs and so forth. That's why I don't have that as much right now. And I'll tell you it's huge. It's a big deal for me. It's much more easier to live with.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. And for me now, the only ones I really worry about is my cats, because I have to, because they love people and they like dogs too, except they recognize Joanne's dogs mean business. So,
and they do bite if you touch them too much.
Yes. If you get all handsy.
Yep.
Well, he doesn't do that anymore now that maybe. But anyway, I do try to keep them away because they're a little more challenging. Your cats also are a little more challenging. So you definitely want to consider, if you have cats, maybe putting them in a room or whatever for with a litter box and all that, so they can be in a comfortable place as well. If those of you who have cats, because for my cats, it would be very, very challenging for sure. And they can get themselves into a situation that they don't, and they can get to the food, where some of the dogs you can avoid it, but not for the cats. So something to think about. Okay. So those are just little things to keep in mind and just to remember. The other thing too, some people, what they do if they're going to have a big party or a big event, they still board their dogs, or they have a sitter where they can go and stay overnight or whatever if they're having a big party and all that, which is also a really, really good idea. Because in that way, you don't have to worry about it. You can deal depending on the scope of your celebration, right? And how many people and what you're looking to do. So sometimes that's a good thing too, right? You can just do an overnight, or they can stay with someone until that you can decide, until the festivities are all over and all that stuff. So something to consider. And I think that was the majority. And make sure the garbage is always put away, and that you don't, leave food laying around, which I can't imagine most of you do. But I always like to do the reminders, because it does matter, right? It does matter, and it goes back to what we talked about. Having people over and managing that arousal as they come to your house and all that stuff. It matters a lot. So, any questions about anything? Because I think most of us know those basic things. It's just something to consider. And also, if your dog's going to need some help or extra help, go to the vet before you need it, right? Like Joanne said, go get some trazodone. Blah blah blah. Hydrogen peroxide, yeah, and that's a really good point, Kim. Hydrogen peroxide is really important, but it's got to be fresh in case the dog swallows something. If it's an old bottle of hydrogen peroxide, it does not work as well. It has to be a fresh bottle. I'm just putting it out there. So, You can't use one that's been sitting around so long; it doesn't work very well. So, just something to consider because it does become a bit of a it's not as effective. I found out the hard way. It doesn't work as well. And I think, I think that's all we had. Like today, we wanted to kind of cover a little bit of what to do for the holidays, just reminders, little tips about what to do there. No leftovers, cook your food. ARF is a great idea if you want to. So Lisa, is she a local person?
You know what? I know she was an indie. She recently moved over. I think it was the southern Illinois, but like not like south of the city type of thing. One of those, and maybe Kathleen might. I don't remember exactly, but I would get my stuff locally from her, and she had beef. They recently did lamb, and then some turkey and stuff like that. But she is. It's always real food.
Yeah, it says Geneva.
Thank you. Okay, maybe not south, north.
Geneva, Illinois.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Alwaysrealfood.com. And
Yep.
And her stuff is awesome. I remember years ago when they started talking about putting that stuff together, and it was, she had it all nutritionally valued to make sure it was, and that's a big undertaking, by the way. That's huge when you do stuff like that, when you actually do food, creating dog food and stuff like that make sure it's proper. It's a big deal. So she ended up she's got a bakery and stuff that's right up in Geneva. I thought she was doing south, but clearly not. But she delivers in the area as well. But it's a good product. That was something that as my dogs got older and couldn't tolerate raw, then we went to cook food, and that was a nice kind of thing for them.
Yeah. Jen, I agree with you. I always survive with wine too. But see, if you have too much of that, you want to make sure your dogs are put away.
Yep.
So nobody falls down, namely you. And so yeah, I put the link there, Always Real Food. If you want to get something special for your dogs for the holidays, that would be a really nice something to consider. And people really like to do all that. So it's pretty fun for the dogs. All right. Well, it's a shorter version tonight, but I just wanted to just send out those reminders. We are going to have a lot more guests on our show and some other different topics. Thank you for all your recommendations. We've really we've got some stuff lined up, and hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit better, have more guests for next year, and have topics that you're interested in. So keep them coming if you still have other things you would like to see or more of. Again, send it to Nancy for Your Canine, or Joanne at For Better For Worse, or Lisa at Canine Defined. So that way we can keep coming up with new topics or things that you guys are interested in. So thank you again. Have a great, yes, ma'am.
I do have one thing, and this is on behalf of our rescue dogs. Remember, they're alone for the holidays, right? So those in shelters and the foster homes are great. They'll usually do extra special stuff, but for our dogs in shelters, just think about them too, and remember to, whatever you can contribute, whatever it's, a special little toy. It doesn't have to be anything huge. Like I said, I myself will contribute to like local rescues to have the special turkey dinner or what have you and stuff like that. But, I always think about them. Makes me sad because I'm like, if they're they're not, they don't have that. And thank God for volunteers for rescues that go and take care of them. So, support your local rescues and shelters, please.
Yep. All right, you guys. Good night. See you next week.
Good night.
Hi.